Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. Today I was going to talk about just generally what's going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the world. I mean, trade issues, tariffs, stock markets, earthquakes. It seems like a lot of instability. And I don't usually do talks like this, where it's just about kind of a single moment in time or day. I usually do like monthly videos and things like that. But it just seems like with everything going on in the world, this might be a helpful video. So Vedic Astrology or Jyotish for 9th April 2025. So Vedic Astrology, if you're not familiar, is ancient Indian astrology that's more than 5,000 years old. All right, so let's just take a look. All right, so this is the natural zodiac for today, 9th April 2025. The natural zodiac, what that means is you take the first constellation of Aries and you put it in the first house. So this top diamond in the middle, this is a North Indian style chart, by the way. This top diamond in the middle is what we call the lugna. In Western astrology, it's like the ascendant rising sign first house. And that little one in the bottom corner indicates not the first house, even though it is the first house, but the first constellation of Aries or Mesha in Sanskrit. Okay. Now, the reason why I've done this happens to be 6:39 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, where I'm living. But the reason why I have Aries and the Lugna and the rising sign or ascendant here is what this does is it creates what we call a natural zodiac or a world horoscope. So a horoscope for the whole world. Again, if you watch my monthly videos, I typically go through first and last day of the month to see how the sky patterns are changing over time. Okay, so anyway, today I'm going to try to keep it short. I can go on and on all the astrology because it's all very interesting to me, but let's just see what's obvious here in the chart. First is this big lineup. I've got a couple circles, one in orange and one in kind of a red color in the 12th house. The 12th house here is the 12 in the bottom corner means the 12th zodiac sign of Pisces. So we've got 5 planets here in Pisces in the 12th house. Okay. So in Vedic astrology, we call this Pravraja Yoga, which gives a life focus type of energy. And Western astrology is called a stellium. Okay. So just that, like all these planets in the 12th house of Pisces, what does that indicate? Well, the 12th house symbolizes loss, expenditures, also international trade, which is a big issue. And Pisces is a dual water sign, so you would expect duality, so multiple issues, and water means emotion, so mixed emotions here about multiple issues. Okay, now the planets involved in this Pravraja Yoga, there are 5 of them. Sun is there. Sun represents authority, government, president. We have a bunch of, government leaders, fighting each other right now with trade, tariffs, and that sort of thing. Mercury is in the mix here. Mercury represents things like business, friends, communication. So a lot of, chaos, frankly, going on along those lines. Venus is in here. Venus represents diplomacy, finance, luxury goods, and also human beings. Jupiter is also in the mix. Like, that may not be obvious because Jupiter looks like it's just sitting here in the second house unperturbed. But actually, we have what's called a Parivartana Yoga. So there's an exchange of houses between Venus and Jupiter here, because Venus is in a house of Jupiter, because Jupiter owns Pisces, and Jupiter's in a house of Venus, because Venus owns Taurus, which is where Jupiter's sitting currently. So what you can do is in your mind swap, Jupiter and Venus. So what that means is that essentially brings Jupiter into this mix. So you actually have 6 planets in the stellium, not just 5. Jupiter represents things like law, justice, finance, and the stock market specifically, all things that are, in the news these days. Saturn is in this mix. Saturn represents obstacles, delays, structure. Rahu's in the mix. Rahu's the north node of the moon, and Rahu brings unexpected, unusual, and ambitious energy. Okay, so all these things you can see are involved in a lot of the world events and newspapers these days. So the other thing is that these 6 planets, again, remember Jupiter's part of this mix here, they're all aspecting the 6th house. Their energies aspect and influence the 6th house. The 6th house represents daily routines and enemies. So all of this chaos is not just in the 12th house specifically, but the 6th house as well. So a lot of, daily disruptions, yeah. The other thing is, so the reason why I have 2 circles around this, Pravraja Yoga or stellium here is that, yeah, you have 5 planets plus Jupiter, but really tight. Like if you look really closely at the degrees of Mercury, Saturn, Rahu, and Venus, Venus is in 40 minutes in the first degree of Pisces. Saturn is, 1 degree and 16 minutes in there. Rahu's at 2 degrees 4 minutes, and then Mercury's at 2 degrees 47 minutes. And Mercury's starting to pull out of this because it's just gone progressive. It was retrograde. But essentially, what you have here is these 4 planets literally on top of each other. Okay? This is essentially creating a couple of planetary wars simultaneously. Okay, because Venus is within a degree of Saturn, so Venus and Saturn are in planetary war. That destabilizes both these planets and things that they symbolize, as well as the houses that they own. Okay, Saturn owns 2 houses, the 10th and the 11th house. So 10th house is work and reputation. 11th house is clubs, group, society, and income. Venus owns the 2nd house of family assets, assets including large portfolios like stock market. And Venus also owns the 7th house of relationships, especially spouse-like partnerships and business partners. Independent business, as well as like path through life. Okay. So Venus is also like, even though Mercury is pulling out of this over the last few, since the first of the month, Mercury was actually closer to Venus now. Okay. So essentially Mercury and Venus were on top. So essentially Venus has been also in planetary war with Mercury. Mercury owns the 3rd house of siblings, but also neighbors. And Mercury owns the 6th house of enemies. Okay. And daily routines. So you can see all of this is, again, just the fact that all these planets are close together, there's going to be chaos and disruption. The other thing is they're very close to the line here of Aquarius and Pisces. So whenever planets are within 1 degree on either side, thereabouts on either side of a crossing of one constellation to the other, that also causes instability because you're changing elemental influence. Like Aquarius is an air sign and Pisces is a water sign. Okay, so there's like a double instability. Okay, but then there's even more instability because this specific part of the sky, we call it a nakshatra in Sanskrit. Nakshatra means lunar mansion. There are 27 lunar mansions. And every night the moon passes through a different one. So after about 27 nights, you get a lunar month. Okay. Now, this particular lunar mansion is quite intense. I mean, the symbol of this lunar mansion, it's called Purva Bhadrapada, and the symbol of it is the front legs of a funeral pyre. Okay. So we're talking smoke, flames, things turning to ashes. And again, all 4 of these planets right now, Mercury, Saturn, Rahu, Venus, besides the 2 planetary wars, 4 of these 5 planets here are again on a funeral pyre. Okay. Smoke, flames, combustion, all of that, turning to toast. Okay. So with all of that, again, all of these things that these, again, planets represent are all in flux right now. Okay. Let me just see my notes here. Okay, these 4 planets all within 2 degrees of each other. Venus in double planetary war. The other thing is Venus here. I mean, Venus is a natural benefic planet, but it's very compromised because it's it's Sunday. It's in the 1st degree of Pisces. Luckily it's in its exaltation sign and it's retrograde. That gives Venus some strength. So Venus is sort of holding up here. But the other thing is that Saturn, Rahu, and Sun are 3 natural malefic planets. Mercury can go either way depending on what's around it. And because there are more natural malefics in here, Mercury's probably siding a little bit more on the malefic side. So basically, Venus is up against 4 malefic planets. Luckily, it does have Jupiter, in the mix here, as Jupiter and Venus are the 2 great benefics. So even though Jupiter and Venus are compromised, it's nice that they're in the mix here because it actually provides, believe it or not, some amount of grace to all this. And let me see what else do I have here. So a lot of instability. And then the thing is, like, this really kind of all came to a head because you can see Saturn just transited. It's the slowest moving planet in classical Vedic astrology. It only changes signs about every 2.5 years. And it basically just transited from Aquarius, where it's been for 2.5 years, to Pisces, and that was on the 29th of March when a lot of the stuff started blowing up. Let's see. The thing, though, is that with Saturn moving into Pisces, now what it's doing is it's directly influencing Venus. It's also aspecting 3 houses away Jupiter. And Saturn is again the planet of obstacles, delays, restructuring, structure, that sort of thing. So it's dragging on the two great benefics, and also, like, in terms of what they can do. Jupiter and Venus represent advice. Venus is the worldly counselor. Jupiter is the spiritual counselor. Venus and Jupiter also both represent finance. Venus and Jupiter also both represent diplomacy, compassion, grace, kindness. Um, And Jupiter and Venus also represent humans. So not only does this 12th house indicate, financial losses and that sort of thing, but also human losses. Like, for example, the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that happened in Myanmar and Thailand not too recently. Okay. So let me just see what else here. I'm trying to keep it short because, again, yeah, I think that's most of it. So you have a gist here. And then the thing is, stepping back just a little bit into time a little bit. So during the month of March, we had two different eclipses. And these two eclipses, the lunar and solar eclipse, happened on this, again, Pisces Virgo axis, bringing more unexpected energy, also more explosive energy, because Mars in this chart at this moment is in its debilitation sign in the 4th house of Cancer. But, just a few days ago, Mars was in the 3rd house. Mars is a planet representing fighting and arguments and bravado and that sort of thing. And the 3rd house represents siblings and neighbors again. So there was a lot of, you know, fighting with worldly neighbors. Yeah, and that's what's going on currently. So, things kind of, that was sort of the flashpoint here in March, besides this. Now, the thing is that the other thing going on, sort of long term, not just like, in the last few weeks or month or so, is that the 4 slowest moving planets, or grahas as they're known as in Sanskrit, so that's Saturn is the slowest, then Rahu and Ketu, the north and south nodes of the moon. Saturn only changes signs every 2.5 years. Rahu and Ketu change every 1.5 years. And Jupiter is also changing signs. Jupiter changes every year. Those 4 planets, which, because they're slow moving, they essentially create like the game board, of life, because their energies are at least steady for a while, a year or so or more. They help direct, energy. So this is about like what people, and this is not just true for the world, but all of us, like is our focus? Where is our energy going? What, corners of our life are needing our attention, that sort of thing. So the game of, the world, the game board of the world, the game board of each of our lives, is changing. So it's almost like you can think of like, this, we have this Pravraja yoga, this life focus yoga going on in the 12th house, and this is slowly, unwinding over the course of the next couple months, and it will, and then, and once the smoke clears, we'll see what we're dealing with, at the end of May or beginning of June. But then you can also think of like this chart as almost like revolving around like a merry-go-round at the same time. So, kind of no matter which way you look at it, whether it's short or long term, there's a lot of changes going on, and that's part of what's showing up for us, again, in the world news. All right, so that is part of the good news here, is that, again, over the course of the next 2 months through the end of May, because Sun is moving out of here on the 13th, and Mercury, I think, is moving out of here in May. Rahu is also moving out of the stellium in May. Venus won't move out of here until the end of May. So, at the end of May, beginning of June, the stellium will no longer exist, and the 4 slow-moving planets will now be in their new position, creating, again, the kind of life, life board, life structure, for at least the next 1 to 3 years. Okay. And then again, even though Jupiter and Venus are compromised because they're influenced by this really, kind of virulent Saturn, at least they are involved and taking off a bit of the edge, even though it may not seem like it. Okay, so that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on. On the next slide, I actually have a list of the different videos where I've been talking about these things actually for the last few months. If you want to get into more details or kind of more of follow along with what's going on. So yeah, so if you want to follow along with astrology of world events, it's doing so. Astrology of world events is also known as mundane or geopolitical astrology, which is a lot of what I do on this channel. But again, if you want to look at some of the videos, where I was getting into a lot of more detail of this planetary lineup, the current planetary lineup, I would start looking at December solstice 2024 through June solstice 2025. That video, that's where I first discussed the implication of the 7-planet lineup in Pisces in the 12th house. And I was basically saying, we're looking at multiple natural and man-made disasters here. I also did a video in January titled Best Time for New Leadership, Vedic Astrology, Auspicious Timing, which is known as Muhurta in Sanskrit. And the example I used to show how that kind of analysis is used, I was comparing the U.S. presidential inaugurations for 2017 and 2025, since we just had, excuse me, a new president inaugurated in January. Also, I have another video titled Introduction to Planetary Periods of the Shah Sequence, which may sound kind of tangential, but actually the example analysis I did in that video is about the U.S. national chart and comparing the current planetary sequence that's activated for the United States and Revolutionary War, which is actually very similar. Then I have analysis of the lunar eclipse on the 14th of March 2025. And in that video specifically, because in my videos, I like to use specific birth charts, especially famous and historical birth charts, to give a more concretized sort of a view of what's going on in the sky. Otherwise, it can get very abstract. But I went into various key historical and current events in the New York Stock Exchange, including Black Tuesday, which was one of the greatest dips in the stock market, and how Black Tuesday compares, to the current sky pattern. Then on the solar eclipse on 29th of March 2025 video, the example charts I was looking at was related to U.S. diplomacy with Greenland / Denmark and Canada, and the events going on along those lines, both historically and currently, because there are remnants of the past there, or echoes of the past, I should say. And then every month, so especially the planet, every month I do a monthly video where I kind of track the planetary changes. And so the planetary transits for March 2025 video, I was looking specifically at the kind of, crux or the flashpoint here, the formation of the 7-planet alignment in Pisces, and then the planetary transits for April 2025. So that was it's starting to unwind. So the evolution of the 6-planet alignment. And then I did go into a specific analysis of the 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar and Thailand. So anyway, if it's interesting to you, if you're up for it, there's some other videos here that may be helpful to you. Okay, so there you have it. I tried to keep it short and sweet today, as much as I could, considering how complex in a lot of ways things are. Yeah, so if you're interested in learning Vedic astrology, all of my teaching videos or my concept plays, they can be found there. If you want to get, into it on that level. But as always, I hope these talks, the reason why I do them is I hope that they're helpful and useful to people as they learn to navigate the energy cycles of their own lives. But then also, through things like this, talks like this, understand world events, why they're happening, and that sort of thing. So thanks so much for stopping by. And until the next one, take care. Namaste.